Hi everyone, welcome to this last recording related to the lecture on stress. So we're going to start with Hans Selye's conceptualization of stress. So Selye is sometimes known as one of the pioneers of stress, and in 1936 he looked at stress and its effects on the body. So he focused on maladaptation and pathology of stress. Every organism attempts to achieve a balance or homeostasis. Physiological and psychological balance needs to be maintained. So when stress is perceived, the mind and the body adjust with an adaptive response that tries to restore homeostasis. So this adaptive response varies in intensity and physical manifestation from person to person, and actually from stressor to stressor. So Selye demonstrated the existence of a biological stress syndrome, which he called the general adaptation syndrome. Okay, we're going to move to the next slide, hopefully. All right. So according to Selye, this is his general adaptation syndrome. There are 3 stages. All right, the alarm reaction, resistance, and exhaustion. All right, so we're going to go through these 3. All right, so these diagrams match up here. The alarm reaction to the alarm clock, resistance to this fellow here holding up this wall of resistance, and then exhaustion. Okay, so there are 3 stages in Selye's general adaptation syndrome, and they occur in response to stressors. So the alarm reaction, in this stage, the immune system is suppressed and normal resistance is lowered. So the person becomes more susceptible to infection, like getting a cold during the summer after they've worked hard all year long. If the stress is brief, the body's response is limited to that of an alarm reaction, and when the stress ends, so does the reaction. So the body tends to bounce back and recover quickly. So the first thing that happens is the alarm. All right, the sympathetic nervous system and the HPA axis is activated. All right, so then the next stage in Selye's general adaptation syndrome is resistance. So in resistance, the body makes physiological changes that enable it to adapt to prolonged stress. So the body works overtime to bring immune response and resistance up to par. The immune system is actually very strong at this point in an attempt to keep the body in fighting form. At this stage, disorders of excess immunity, such as increased allergies or autoimmune diseases, occur. So in resistance, again, the body is trying to adapt. There is a sustained level of cortisol in an attempt to maintain arousal. And the final stage in the general adaptation syndrome, according to Selye, is exhaustion. So here the body eventually loses its ability to keep up with the demands that stress puts on it. Protective immune function breaks down with mixtures of too much antibody immunity causing allergies, and at the same time too little cellular immunity resulting in infection. So body systems are weakened, and this has implications on their health. Okay, so again, the body has its limits, and these are different in every person. So this stage of exhaustion is the pathological state. There are diverse health consequences that appear here, and they may eventually lead to death. All right, so just to summarize, alarm, the body first reacts, the sympathetic nervous system and HPA axis is activated. In resistance, the body tries to adapt. A sustained level of cortisol is there in an attempt to maintain arousal. And then in exhaustion, the body systems are weakened. One of the things I wanted to address is something called allostatic load. So this refers to the physiologic burden of repeated stressors and enduring a heightened stress response system. So when this load becomes too great, stress responses change from adaptation to health problems and stress-related disorders. So at the physiological level, chronic stress leads to prolonged biological reactions that strain the physical body. So stressful situations and continuing threats provoke fight or flight reactions, and these reactions impose chronic stress upon the body if a person doesn't have enough opportunities for recovery in non-stressful environments. So research evidence convincingly shows that continuous stress or allostatic load beginning during childhood weakens resistance to disease and disrupts the functioning of the hormonal, metabolic, and immune systems. So interesting there, hey? So bouncing back, all right, bouncing back. How quickly do you bounce back from short-term stress? All right, so again, this affects everyone differently, how quickly you can bounce back. All right, so some people bounce back fairly quickly and others don't. All right, so how quickly you bounce back from short-term depends on your own body. How well one withstands long-term stress is an individual thing too. So is this determination of how long one can go without breaking down and becoming exhausted. So a particularly important factor is how we think about stress. So different modes of thinking produce significantly different responses. The same factors, again, that allow coping with stress play into how susceptible a person is to developing chronic stress and its illnesses. So there are some buffers to stress. So at the next lecture, we're going to be talking more about coping with stress and so forth. But there are elements, there are some elements that can alleviate the deleterious effects of stress. So these can include, again, social support, a sense of control, physical fitness, a sense of humor, optimism, again, coping styles. So all of these things play into how quickly you can bounce back and actually can buffer the effects stress has on a person. So stress is due to individual factors, behavioral factors, lifestyle factors, but stress is also linked to health disparities, right? Life chances, social supports, and other major social determinants or determinants of health. All right, so stressful living conditions make it extremely hard to do other things in life other than just surviving. So stressful and poor living conditions can cause feelings of shame, insecurity, worthlessness. Under adverse living conditions, everyday life often appears as unpredictable, uncontrollable, meaningless. Uncertainty about the future raises anxiety and hopelessness, and that creates exhaustion and makes coping difficult. So people who experience high levels of stress often attempt to relieve these pressures by adopting unhealthy coping behaviors, such as excessive use of alcohol or tobacco or drugs, overeating. All right. So again, stress has this impact on the individual, but also is linked to other things we see in society, other things we've talked about in this course, particularly health disparities. Okay, so again, we talked about stress, stressful and poor living conditions, and the effect that has on a person's psychological well-being. So that is it for our recorded lectures on stress. Thank you for listening.